Hey, everybody. Okay, so the look is a little different. I'm sure you're seeing already for those who are joining us from our normal crew here. Had some technical difficulties. Don't know what had happened. The computer was not working. We couldn't make it work. So I'm now on my phone in my studio. But the show must go on, as they say. And boy, a lot of things are happening right now. We'll just jump right into it. Right now, we are closing in on literally hours left before the end of the ceasefire period. That's going to expire at midnight, Washington, D.C. time, and even earlier than that in the region. Earlier tonight, the Iranian side was actually having a celebration, a big party in downtown Tehran. Far from being afraid, there were actually some videos that I saw earlier tonight, actually about an hour ago, of missile launchers and missile carriers rolling through the streets of Tehran, people riding on them like it's a float at a parade, completely unafraid of whether or not they might be hit. Obviously, they know that everybody's paying attention to that and watching from space, probably watching from drones, and they were almost taunting the West to attack them in there. They know that this is going to be running out. Oh, that's it right there. Thanks, Gary. Terrific. Glad you were able to find that. Uh, doesn't look like a lot of fear there. Doesn't look like that they're thinking, oh my gosh, boy, this is something that's going to, we're going to get hit by the Americans and the Israelis. Everything's going to go back to war and we're afraid. They're doing everything they can to show both at the just regular people level, because you see people, I mean, literally, they're waving flags around in the middle of Tehran just hours before this ceasefire comes to an end, showing that they have no fear of anything and they're ready to go. That, of course, is being matched at the leader level, which I'm going to get to in just a second. But at the U.S. level, I think that President Trump, who had a conversation this morning on with CNBC, some of their anchors on an economics issue, he went on to talk to him, and I think the attempt was to say, "Hey, I'm going to issue one more really scary threat to Iran to show them they better submit to us, or bad things are going to happen." You're seeing evidence on the screen there that hadn't happened. There's other evidence I'm about to show you that shows the Iranian side is ready for whatever is going to come next, and they seem to be pretty sober-minded. They don't think that nothing's going to happen. They just think that whatever does, they've got some answers to it, and they're going to be able to suck down these missiles as well. First of all, let me show you. This was this morning on CNBC what President Trump told the anchors there.
If we get close in negotiations right now, but the deadline for the ceasefire is tomorrow, it looks like things are progressing. Will you let it keep going?
Well, I don't want to do that. We don't have that much time because by the time both parties get there, as you know, they just got the okay to go forward, which I knew they were going to do anyway. I mean, I don't think they had a choice. They have to negotiate. And, even during the ceasefire, which I think was a good thing because we're totally loaded up. We have so much ammo. We have so much of everything that we've a much more powerful than it was 4 or 5 weeks ago.
You're saying that you need at least the prospects for a signed deal today and tomorrow, or else you would resume bombing Iran.
Well, I expect to be bombing because I think that's a better attitude to go in with. But we're ready to go. I mean, the military is raring to go. They are absolutely incredible.
See, now that's something that's going to kind of get to President Trump's ire a little bit because he doesn't like to be told no. He doesn't like for his threats to be ignored. And here you see he was mocking the Iranian side and said, well, of course they're going to show up in Pakistan. I mean, they don't have a choice. I knew they would. And they didn't. At least as of the time we're coming to you live right now, they still have not left. And in fact, everything we've seen out of Tehran so far says that they're not going. We're going to get into some of that in just a second here, but there was in the Washington Post this afternoon that there was delay that there was supposed to have left. That Vice President Vance, along with Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, were supposed to have left, but there was a delay, it said. And then just before I came on the air here, I saw from Axios who was reporting that in fact now it's a permanent delay, i.e., they're not going. They said it's an indefinite, so there's no plan for the vice president or the delegation to even go down there. So if there's no plan right now, what can we expect to happen once this deadline expires? Well, if President Trump was thinking that the Iranian side was going to be cowering in fear, or that they were going to be going, holy cow, we can't absorb another shot like the first 40 days, that seems to be dissipated. Not only did you see the parade there that Gary was showing you, but also let me show you some comments on X from several of the key leaders that were on. We're going to start with President Pezeshkian, who he said adherence to commitments is the logic that justifies any kind of dialogue. In addition to the deep historical distrust in Iran toward the background of the U.S. government's behavior and performance, the non constructive and contradictory approach of U.S. officials in recent days carries a bitter message. They seek Iran's surrender. The people of Iran will not bow to coercion. And you see there, he's hearkening the people as well as the government, and you just saw the results of that in the square of Tehran. And look, these kinds of threats, I mean, they almost always have this kind of an action. I know that there's this popular idea that, well, like what happened in Venezuela. If you just threaten people hard enough and you come in and you show you're willing to kill a bunch of people like we did then, as we were demonstrating, as the White House was demonstrating that they would kill a bunch of people in these boats, these alleged drug boats in the Caribbean Sea and in the Pacific Ocean adjacent to that. And then President Trump is like, yeah, I'll just keep killing people. And then now that you'll either give me what I want or I'll come and take it by force. And of course, he had some internal help on the Venezuela thing, but it seemed to work. And so President Trump seems to have come away with the conclusion that's just how it works. All you got to do is scare everybody with enough threat and enough demonstration that you'll use force, and then they'll back down. Well, that should, number one, it should never have been applied here because the Iranian people are definitely radically different than the Venezuelan people. The culture, the religion, the history, the armed forces, the geography, everything should have told President Trump, don't do it. If you want to make a threat, it's not a good idea, but just make it an empty threat. Make it one that maybe you'll get lucky and they'll give in, but if they don't, come up with something else. But by all means, don't act on the threat because it's not going to succeed. And that's exactly, unfortunately, what we ended up doing. Because we ignored the culture, we ignored the history, we ignored the religion, and we ignored geography. And now they're all coming back to bite us in the butt. And so here we are now at the end of this period, this 2-week period. Now, it's unclear whether this was always part of the plan that President Trump just said, hey, militarily, we need more time. We've used up most of the stuff we had there, and we need to build back up and get all of our inventories, all of our magazines back full, get some guys rested and recovered a little bit, and then we'll go back at it again, and we'll come in with a big, hard punch, etc. Maybe that's what he had in mind. And so maybe there wasn't any diplomacy at all. Or maybe he said, let's show them that first 40 days, that's enough to kind of set them on edge and show that we mean business. And now then we'll come and give them a second chance to surrender and give in to us. And if not, we'll come back with the hammer. That was the claim. Well, that just clearly is not going to work on the Iranian side. And now then, if I argue they should definitely not have started this war for all the reasons I just mentioned, the reasons not to restart are even higher. Because consider the cost. Don't just look at what we have done to Iran, which has been considerable, and the amount of people that we've killed, and the amount of damage that we've done to their country, to their industry, to some of their energy infrastructure, to some of their factories, and to like 100 and some odd ships, a whole bunch of airplanes. All kinds of military attacks, command and control. We've assassinated some of their leaders. Lot of damage done to Iran, no question about it. Anti-aircraft system's been destroyed. But there's another side to the ledger. There's all kinds of American airplanes that have been damaged or destroyed, a large number, billions of dollars worth. There have been radars systems that have been destroyed. We have a large number. I'm sorry, Gary, is that something that's brand new here? I see that says 4:09 p.m. So, okay.
Yeah, indeed. It just came on.
Great. Let's see what it says together. Based on the fact that the government of Iran is seriously fractured, not unexpectedly so, and upon request of Field Marshal Aslam Munir, that's of Pakistan, and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif of Pakistan, we have been asked to hold our attack on the country of Iran until such time as their leaders and representatives can come up with a unified proposal. I have therefore directed our military to continue with the blockade and in other respects remain ready and able, and we will therefore extend the ceasefire until such time as their proposal is submitted and discussions are concluded one way or the other. Okay. What is today? You know what? It's Taco Tuesday
Taco.
again, as it turns out. There's something special about this day. That can't be viewed as any way except for we blinked. Wow, that's you're watching this live, folks. There was a lot of things, and I'll continue to show you some of the things we were about to. But that can't be viewed in any way except for a defeat on our side. That's an embarrassment. We definitely blinked and backed down. And to say until they come up with a proposal, I mean, what kind of sense? They're unequivocal on what their proposal is. It's not changed at all. It's not going to change right now. And so that the idea that we're waiting for them to come up. When was the last time you ever saw President Trump says, you know what? I'll tell you what, we're going to give you time to do it. You guys don't have your stuff together. We'll pause off on here because we're just good guys. And we're all about trying to help you out. Obviously, he never does that. Anytime President Trump, I mean, you go back through his entire history, you go back through the art of the deal, you go back through everything he's done. He said, you see weakness on your other side, you exploit it, you drive a hole in it, and you just press hard until you get what you want. You never let up off the gas. Therefore, this means that he realized that we were in a losing position. Now, I'm okay with that because it would have been disastrous for him to go forward. If he had pushed a bad position, maybe also part of that art of the deal is that he realizes that don't push down on a losing proposition, don't double down on it because it's just going to cost you more. I mean, this is a good time for some of that business acumen to start playing in to say, hey, we've lost so far a lot of stuff. Let's don't lose even more. Some of the bigger issues involved with that is not just the assets lost, but with the ammunition that we've expended. We are dangerously low on the categories of ammunition that matter the most in our national security capabilities. The offensive missiles, the JASMs, the SM-2s, SM-3s, and several other categories, SM-6s, of course, the Tomahawk cruise missile. On the defensive side, the PAC-3s, the THAAD missiles, the ammunition for the Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 systems in Israel. These are all running really low. You ramp this back up again with no prospect to end, and we could be setting ourselves up for either exhausting our missiles and not being able to defend ourselves from the incoming missiles, and then not being able to do any damage. If you can't bomb them into submission, if you used all your stuff, what are you going to do then? See, that's one of my big problems that we haven't done so far is that we don't ever do the what happens next thing, and what if this doesn't work doesn't seem to enter into the thinking before we start. Although maybe this is an example of it. Maybe we are finally starting to say, hey, sir, maybe the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, maybe Admiral Cooper. I don't know. I don't know if Pete Hegseth is squared up enough to be able to figure this out, but who knows? Maybe he is. Maybe altogether they said, sir, we just can't do this. We don't have the assets to do it. And if they don't surrender, if they don't give in, and every indication is that they won't, then we're going to run out of ammunition and we're not going to be able to compel them. That's one level. By itself, that's enough already to say, don't do this. But then the other one is a little bit bigger here, is that if you start going down that path, they have already very clearly said they are going to retaliate in kind. And as a matter of fact, Gary, if you can put up that full screen there of the IRGC leader, they were very explicit on this. He said this is a little over an hour ago, I think a couple of hours now. Everyone must leave the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait immediately. Sailors aboard all ships in the Arabian Gulf must also prepare to evacuate their vessels. This is especially urgent for ships near the Strait of Hormuz, and there are hundreds of them trapped inside there, which will be destroyed first. Time is running out. So the Iranian side, unambiguously, this is the spokesman, Alpha Car for the IRGC. If you start attacking us, the ships in the Gulf are going to be flamed up first. That's the first things to hit. And then he said, everyone must leave. He didn't say if you're in a military installation or if you're in an oil facility. He said everyone must leave immediately. That to me is pretty clear that they mean business when they say they're going to hit desalination facilities, because that's the only thing that would affect literally the entire population. You've heard Professor Morandi on our show very unequivocally said if you threaten our existence by hitting all of our energy sources and bridges and all the things that President Trump claimed it and threatened that he would hit with, then you're going to find out that there's real problems here because we're going to reciprocate the existential threat to all of your neighbors in the region, to all of your allies. And I think that they absolutely meant that. And so that warning there was a very clear case. So hopefully that's another thing that maybe got President Trump to thinking just starting this is no good. So now we've got two major reasons not to go through with this. One is our own capacity, because there's no reason to think that they would give in now when they haven't before. We don't have enough ammunition to go more than a few months, and maybe not even that far. Maybe like 5-6 weeks of more heavy bombardment. And then what? What if we run out or are nearly out? And then you have to just stop with abject failure. That's enough by itself. But then you have this other one on top of it, and that has catastrophic events. Right now, it's a political decision. You can make a political decision not to go forward with this. You can make another political decision to come to some kind of an agreement that we both can live with. Everybody will paint it up as a success on their side, and everybody will have lost something, but maybe there's just still chance to get those straits opened up. Now then, that's a political decision that can restart the flow of oil as soon as the political decision is made. Now, there's a lot of systematic problems that I've already told you about that are going to have to unwind, that it's going to take literally months. Even if a political decision is made to open the strait back up, it's going to take months to unwind this. We've already got problems baked in, probably at least have a recession already, but that is still better than the alternative, which is by launching an offensive operation, which then causes the Iranian side to retaliate the way they said. Now you have a physical disruption. Now it's no longer a political decision that you can just turn on literally on a dime, as you saw graphically exemplified in this very show. But that we just turned it off on a political decision right there. If the bombs start falling and destroying infrastructure, however, Iranian oil infrastructure, Iranian energy, Qatari, Bahraini, UAE, etc., all of them, Saudi Arabian, now that you have catastrophe, because it's going to take probably half a year to multiple years in some cases to get all that damage done. And the global economy, there's no way to replace that much lost production. And it would cause serious problems. There's no question about that. So and actually one more person I want to take a look at here, and that is Abbas Arakchi, because he made another comment here I think it's important to point up. Gary, if you can toss that one up. He said, blockading Iranian ports is an act of war and thus a violation of the ceasefire. Striking a commercial vessel and taking its crew and hostage is even a greater violation. Iran knows how to neutralize restrictions, how to defend disinterest, and how to resist bullying. That one was today at 2:15 p.m. So you see, they've been building this up all during the afternoon, and where this was going and where it wasn't going from the Iranian side. Now I want to show you just real quick here what Jack Keane was saying. He's probably crying right now. If we had a secret camera that could go find Jack Keane, Mark Levin, Lindsey Graham, they may even be all huddled together and just crying right now. They're angry and they're throwing stuff around, and they're probably already in a car heading over to the White House to try and beg Trump to do something different. Here's what they're going to ask for.
We have twice the capability on the U.S. side in the theater now than when we had when we started the war. We have never given up bringing in additional assets to assist with the execution of our wartime objectives. The Israelis, who had some ammunition shortages, have full magazine depth now. So if we go back to combat operations, they are going to be absolutely full throttle and considerably more dramatic than anything the Iranians have experienced, to include all the targets the president is talking about and then some.
You know, I when I hear stuff like that, I just got to think, what in the hell are you thinking about, and why aren't you thinking? There are already ramifications to this thing unfolding and manifesting right now. It's no longer theoretical. It's no longer, well, if we don't get this wrapped up quick, then the stuff is already starting to materialize. And that's all over the place. I mean, there's problems in Asia. I actually just had lunch today with a friend of America, a diplomat, whom I'll not name here for obvious reasons. but it's a good friend of America's in Asia. And they said, listen, we're already starting to have some problems. In fact, in the news, you've seen in South Korea, they are on basically government required measures to use less fuel. So they're saying, all right, everybody who has a license plate that has the number ending in 0 to 5, you should only drive on even number days. Everybody else in the other one from 6 on up to 9, you should drive only on the odd days, etc. It's not mandated, but apparently people in South Korea and Asia cooperate to their benefit. They don't have to be made to do it. But the bottom line is that they're already implementing measures because they're suffering right now. The last boat that left the day before this war started from the Persian Gulf before the strait closed arrived yesterday, I think, actually, in Malaysia, if I'm not mistaken. That was the last one. So now now it's really starting to be a physical shortfall everywhere. So that's happening in Asia, and you're talking the Philippines, Vietnam, Japan, South Korea, all already suffering. You have in a lot of people in Africa already suffering. The price of fuel is going way up, and of course, in a country that's relatively poor, like much of Africa, the price of especially diesel going up and petroleum means everything gets more expensive, and their margins are razor thin in many cases, much more so than in the Western world. And so they're already hurting too. The fertilizers, of course, that's maybe the biggest thing because that's got things that's already baked in problems for the fall, for the time when harvests come in. And then that means that the food that's going to be harvested in that's supposed to already fill up the gap through the next winter is already going to be lower by some 40% in some estimates in some parts of the world, which means the prices of everything is going to go up. Plus, the price to get it to market is also going to go up because of the lack of diesel. Now, then you add in there the similar problems in Europe. I think we showed you Lagarde this morning. Talked about how they're also, because of the fertilizers, they're going to have problems with farming. They're maybe going to have to start rationing. It's going on all over the place. And now that it's going to start biting here in the United States, there has been a big problem with manipulation of the markets so far that somebody with knowledge about what the White House is going to do has at least 3 times made a lot of money to the tune of like hundreds of millions of dollars because they had advanced knowledge, because President Trump has been really good at manipulating the market to keep that price at the paper price at right around or even under $100. And a lot of people have said, oh, okay, well, it's not that bad because at home, because we see the price is still on. Yeah, it's a little bit more. The gas price has gone up $1 since this started per gallon, which is pretty bad, but it's not that bad. And they see the prices staying below $100, and they see the stock market going up, and so everything must be okay. That's what President Trump tells everybody, to keep everybody calm, and the markets, and that's worked. Here's the problem with that. The system is designed in such a way that the difference between what's called dated Brent, or the price you actually pay at the tanker, not what you see on a piece of paper, which is what the market is saying is going to be the future price. There's something called dated Brent, which is what you pay at the price at the actual terminal where the oil tankers fill up. That's the price they pay, and that is already over 100, like 115, 120, $144 on some days. It varies, but it's way up there. And people have wondered, well, why then the difference between what they're actually paying and what this is? Because of market manipulation. And right now, at least as of 2 days ago, the last time I saw this stat, it was about a $35 difference between the actual price of a barrel of oil and the price on paper, so-called, what they see on the market. And it has never in the history of the oil market been that high. What that tells you is that there is market manipulation going on to make people think that things aren't that bad. Here's the problem. And this is what one of the analysis that I saw earlier today described. That can only go on for a certain period of time. And they think that period of time is about 1 more week. And then you won't be able to paper it over because the physical absence of oil is going to start manifesting in places, and you can no longer paper it over. So it's probably within a week, no matter what happens with this ceasefire, you're going to see the price of oil, even the paper price, is going to start spiking again. And this time, you're not going to be able to talk it down. And now people are paying a lot of attention to whoever's been manipulating, whoever's been making money off of this. So somebody's got some insider information. Now people are really starting to pay attention all around the world, not even just in the US. So that's probably going to start coming to an end as well. But so where do we go from here? That's why I'm still amazed at the Jack Keens and the Mark Levins and the Benjamin Netanyahu and all these other folks who just are myopically focused on, I want to kill the Iranians. I want to destroy the Iranians. And they're oblivious to all these things I just told you. I just can't understand that. I can understand on the one hand, I won't agree with it, but I can understand some people just don't like other people. Some people hate other people, and they're just focused on that. But self-preservation ordinarily blocks out the moves that are going to be self-harming, which is where we're at right now. President Trump chose to start a war that has done nothing but harm us and our allies in big ways. We've already done one show on the cost of just after this ceasefire began. We've already done a show to show you the physical cost that we've already paid in the near term in the losses. But now I'm telling you about these other losses that are going to be coming up that are going to accrue because of the damage that's already been done. That's so far. But any rational person, even if your soul is black and your heart is wicked and you can see you don't care about your fellow man, if you still want self-preservation, that should still lead you to say, okay, but there's a limit to it. Maybe that's what happened to Trump finally. Maybe enough people got to him and said, sir, we can't go down this path. It's going to crush us. And you have your political legs cut out from under you. You won't recover from this one. It may be too late already. We'll see how things go, because like I said, according to these experts, what's been baked in through the first, since March 1st, basically when this war really got into high gear up until now. So now you're closing in on 2 months where the flow of oil has been cut off. Now that it's going to start manifesting, I don't think that you can undo that. I don't think that there's a political decision to stop that because it's baked in already. And let's also consider where we are. The war's not over. The strait is not open. President Trump says, my blockade still remains in place. The Iranian says their blockade still remains in place. Iran is perfectly content to just sit back and go, I got all the time in the world. We're already suffering. We know how to suffer. We've done it for a long time. How about you? President Trump says, we'll wait until they get their stuff together and they can come up with a unified plan. Their plan ain't changing, folks. And we showed it to you on the show earlier today. They're saying, you're leaving the region. You're paying us for the cost that you've already done. You're going to unfreeze our funds. And we're going to retain control of the reprocessed material that we have, the nuclear material. We're going to retain the ability to reprocess more material in the future. And we're going to keep control of the Strait of Hormuz. That's their position. They've never said anything different that I'm aware of. They've said different variations, but that's where they're camped out right now. That's not going to change, whether you give them more time or not. The only question is going to be is what is our position going to be? Because they're incompatible. The American side is way off the picture here. The Iranian side is way off the picture here. They're not coming together. The Iranian side is right here, and they're going to stay there. If President Trump thinks that I'll give them a chance to think about it, and maybe they're going to be, because I promise you, just remember that scene Gary was showing you a minute. There was a parade inside Tehran before the announcement here. When they thought missiles were going to start coming at them, they were already celebrating, saying, yeah, we are not giving in. Can you imagine what's happening now? I don't know, Gary, keep an eye out. If you see any kind of reaction inside Tehran about, I would imagine it's going to be even more celebratory, because there's no doubt in everybody's mind, we blinked. And they're going to stay right where they are. Those terms I just laid out are going to stay unchanged. And they're going to say, you want to come to our side? We're willing to talk. And they will be. The Iranian side, they want the war to over. They want it to come to an end. So don't think that, that they want to say, oh, well, no, we want to keep the war going on. They definitely don't. They want it to be done. They want sanctions relief. They want to have a chance to rebuild their economy. They want freedom from fear of attack, etc. And look, and I know a lot of people don't like the regime, and there's a lot of things that they were doing in the past that were damaging and harmful, and they did kill a lot of people in the past, and they've been very repressive. That's something for them to figure out, though. It's not something for me to figure out. It's not something for President Trump to figure out. That's something that they'll have to do on their own. But we have to get along with everybody, and especially because of that Strait of Hormuz, we've got to find a way that everybody can live together. Whether we hate them and they hate us, that's all beside the point. The question is, what can we all do to just be copacetic and just get along? But understand also that clock is still ticking. Even though we don't have the resumption of combat operations, at least as at this point, and I'll say at the most, we dodged a bullet right now, but we haven't dodged a bullet completely because the strait is still closed. America's blockade is still on. So that still has to be resolved because all those issues I just told you about, all those economic problems, those aren't caused by bombs falling. Those are caused by the disruption of the oil. And that is still on. So the pressure is still on President Trump. All the reasons why he shouldn't have launched this war and shouldn't have resumed it here are still pressing on. Things are still building up. So this is probably not going to just languish on like this for a long time. We're going to have to do something pretty quick to change the dynamic, because we just can't go on saying we're going to keep you blockaded until you come crawling to us, because they're not going to. They're suffering. They are losing a lot of money every day. That's a fact. But I'm telling you, the United States must not get into a pissing contest with Iran and saying, we'll see who can suffer the longest. Because I can tell you the answer to that already. It's the Iranian side, because they're used to suffering. We've had them suffering economically and in a lot of other ways for decades. So we've trained them how to suffer a long time. We don't ever suffer. We don't even know what that means here. So I can just tell you that there will be no appetite for changing anything on the Iranian side, and they're going to have to wait for us. The question is President Trump going to be able to? That's a real question, because I'm just telling you right now that the pressure on President Trump, he made that Truth Social. Okay, so that's where he's at right now. But I promise you, I was saying that Jack Keane and all those Lindsey Grahams, et cetera, they're all crying. Well, they're really all mad is probably a better way to put it. And they probably are in their car heading to the White House right now. I can imagine that Benjamin Netanyahu is probably already on the phone trying to dial up Trump, and he's probably already he's probably got him on hold in the other room. There's going to be a ton of pressure on President Trump to go back, and they'll give him 100 reasons why. No, sir, that I know what you're thinking, but giving in is the last thing you should do. It's going to be so costly if you do. You're going to have to just bite the bullet here. It's just, unfortunately, you have to do this, and it could sway him. So we're not out of the woods yet. We're out of the woods tonight, it looks like, but we're not out of the woods going forward. So everybody has been really good about putting pressure on President Trump from all these different sides, and we're going to find out what he's going to do, because as I see it right now, and this is all very fresh here, but as I see it right now, President Trump is in a position right now to where he's got a very limited band of options. He can listen to the Lindsey Grahams and Benjamin Netanyahu's, Mark Levin's, and he can go back and do the unthinkable, and to double down on the mistakes we already made, and to go ahead and launch combat operations. And then all the things I've told you negative are going to be exploding and manifesting in bigger ways. Or he's going to have to back down. He can try to put that off for a long time, and he can try to buy some time by just not doing anything, keeping the blockade in place and saying, oh, I'm costing him $500,000 a day, and bragging about that. Then he can do that for a little while. But those costs, I told you, especially if that report I saw, the analysis earlier today, it says that the disparity between the paper price and the dated price are going to start to coalesce and go back towards one another, which only means that the paper price that everybody sees will start going up. He can't hide that. And I think he's about run out of the ability to manipulate it, because he's manipulated a lot already, because this big spread, just because of words. But the market itself has been suffered all along. But you can't hide it at pretty much any point here in a week or so from now. So words won't make any difference then. And so President Trump will come under more domestic pressure from his voters. And obviously, people are already looking to November, and that day's coming up very quick. And you can bet your bottom dollar that his political opponents in the Democratic Party will be jumping all over this, and especially when that price starts going up and the manifestations start hitting here like they're already hitting in Asia, Africa, and Europe. They'll be all over that, and there's just no easy way to fix it. I don't see any way out of this besides President Trump doing something that he just hates more than anything, and that is to concede to the Iranian side. Obviously, he'll put whatever band-aid on it he can. He'll come up with something to claim it was a victory. Fine, go ahead and do that. But most people are going to realize that it's a band-aid, and it's just a piece of cardboard cutout paper that you're pasting over a big defeat and a failure. So we'll see how that's going to work out. But that's what he should do. If he's actually wanted to be America first president and do what's right for our country and it's going to keep us out of trouble, that is the path that he's going to have to follow. It's exactly what he should do. We'll see what's going to happen. Well, that's the news for we got today, folks. I'm glad we were actually live with you on when this broke. But like always, we're going to stay on top of this stuff, and we're going to give you everything that you need to make sense of the world around you. You can count on us to be unintimidated and uncompromised going forward, and we will tell you the truth. Thank you very much, folks, and we'll see you on the next episode of Daniel Davis Deep Dive.
You know, I don't try to talk you into buying gold or tell you how to run your stock portfolio, but there is a way you can help us. Subscribe, hit that like button, and share this with somebody you love.